Elevator going up.
Wait a second. There we go.
Just so.
We know where it is. We were told earlier.
All right. Yeah, I understand you're kind of anxious to have this go on. So are you enjoying your stay at the hotel so
We
far?
did. We did.
All right, you're checking out today?
Yes, we already checked out, but we waited around for you.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And before we continue, is this your first time at the hotel?
I've been here a long time ago when I was younger, but it's his first time.
All right, in that case, I need to give you a proper Reed House first timer's greeting. One moment. Welcome to the Reed House Hotel. Probably the most prestigious hotel in Chattanooga, if I do say so myself. Indisputably, absolutely the oldest. The original Reed House first opened its doors here back in January 1st of 1872. The building we're standing in today first took in guests in 1926 and was built on the foundations of the original hotel. So that is 97 years of history for this one building alone. And if you combine the two together, we have been here for 151 years now without closing a single day. We've stayed open through floods, fires, wars, depressions, the COVID epidemic, everything. Nothing closed us down. We are the oldest continuously open hotel in the entire Southeast.
Wow.
Has this hotel caught fire before?
The kitchen has before, but the whole hotel did not. And before the Reed House was here, there was another hotel on this same property, Crutchfield House. That was owned by one of Chattanooga's first mayors, Thomas Crutchfield. It was opened between 1847 and 1867 when it burned down. Now, of course, this means Crutchfield House was here in the middle of the Civil War. Immediately after the Battle of Chattanooga in September of 1863, the Union Army commandeered Crutchfield House. As soon as they captured the city, they converted it into a field hospital and treated something like 500 battle casualties here in one day.
Wow.
In other words, folks, Annalisa Neberly may not be the only ghost walking these halls
Whew.
tonight,
Okay.
but she is the one we've come to visit this afternoon. So, sir, madam, here we are, room 311. Still the same door as was here on the night of the murder, so I've been told, and still the same lock and key. Last hotel room in the building with an old-fashioned mechanical lock. So, step right in, step back into the 20th century, and welcome to room 311.
Wow. It's okay, Matthew. Don't be scared.
Now, the hotel underwent a major renovation in 2018. They spent close to $30 million all put together. A not inconsiderable percentage of that money went to restoring 311 to its 1920s glory days. So, full disclosure here, none of the furnishings or fixtures you see here today were actually here on the night of the murder. But everything here is an authentic 1920s period antique.
Okay.
And my own personal favorite of those would be the room service telephone secretary. We've got all the bells and whistles on this. It's got brass fittings, ivory mouth and earpieces, a marble writing desk for taking notes while you're on the phone, naturally the old-fashioned rotary dial, and a little switch here beside the dial. You would flip this, then lift the receiver, and within 5 minutes, either housekeeping or the engineering department, our maintenance crew, would be knocking at the door. To be honest, we have trouble making that happen today more often than not. I want to go ahead and point this out because someone on almost every tour I bring through here comments on these, the ceiling fans. They've got the twin helicopter propeller style blades as opposed to the 3 or 4 blade models you see on modern fans. But as you can see, as you can tell, it still pumps up a very nice breeze. And as you can see, it was obviously installed back when people tended to be a little shorter than they are today. Not really a problem for myself, but some of the taller guests I bring on these tours, I see them come through the door. They see the fan, they duck, just on instinct. And finally, before we leave this room, I want to point out the artwork here on the wall. This is an architect's draft from 1924. Basically, proof of concept showing what this wing of the hotel would look like when it was finished in 1926. As you can see, very little has changed between then and now. The only real difference is the trees around the border. They're a little taller now. And we no longer have the big neon Reed House sign on the roof. That unfortunately finally wore out. And, well, folks, they just don't make 10-foot tall replacement neon signs anymore.
Nope.
At least not for less than, well, a serious amount of money. All right, if you all care to join me now in the bedroom. Here we are, the bedroom part of the suite. Not that plush by modern standards, perhaps, but very nice for its day and age. I want to direct your attention to the windows now. If you'll open up the shears here and peep through, you'll notice two things immediately. First is, good Lord, that has to be the most depressing view from a hotel window I've seen in my life. Second, you'll notice there are bars on the windows here. Bars on a hotel room window.
Yes.
That struck me as odd when I first started working here. So I asked the hotel historian, Mr. Logue, about it. And according to him, the bars were installed for the benefit of this gentleman. Y'all are far too young to remember him in real life, but if you've seen any gangster movies, you've probably seen him on the screen.
May I tell you something?
You may.
What is that creepy picture for on the first floor near the other elevators?
Oh, the manor house.
The creepy picture, yeah. I'm not really sure. It's just something the artist put. I've noticed most of the artwork here is just slightly creepifying. Can't say why. That's just a choice they made in 2018.
That's kind of creepy.
Now, as I
When
was
it
saying,
is, it's
who we
floating.
have here is the original Scarface, probably the most notorious gangster in 20th century American history. Although you will notice on his rap sheet here, his arrest record, he lists his job as gambler. Well, the gambler's luck ran out in 1931. He was on his way down from Chicago. He'd just been sentenced there in federal court, not for racketeering or bootlegging or murder, but for income tax evasion, the one charge they could ever pin on him. And he was on his way from the courthouse in Chicago down to the federal penitentiary in Atlanta to begin serving time for tax fraud. Now, as far as getting from Chicago down to Atlanta, that was a bit of a job back then. There was no Con Air at the time, no air transport for federal prisoners. As a matter of fact, there wasn't even an interstate highway system at this point. No, getting a prisoner to prison back then meant loading them in a car with a couple of guards and going on a road trip that could take days. In this case, they got as far as Chattanooga and they pulled into the Reed House for the evening.
Oh, wow.
I've been told the standard procedure for these prisoner transports, once they reach a hotel at night, they would take the prisoner down cellar, find a secure room in the basement, usually the pantry, and lock the prisoner up there for the night. Well, Mr. Capone, being a good bit more notorious and considerably wealthier than your average convict, no, absolutely not. He was not about to spend his last night outside of prison locked in our basement next to the canned goods. Fortunately, as I mentioned, he was extremely wealthy enough, in fact, to be able to finance having bars installed in the windows here on a day's notice.
Oh my
Long story
goodness.
short, Al Capone spent the night here.
That is really, really cool.
One last night in a luxury hotel before going into the big lockup. And I have to think that one of the hotel managers back then thought it would be a fine joke on Mr. Capone to take the murderer here and lock him up in a room where murder was committed only a couple of years earlier. And that is where we come to our main story. Thereby hangs the tale. The tale
Ready?
of Annalisa Neberly. Now, Annalisa and her husband checked into the Reed House, room 311, back in the spring of 1928. Small world, they were also from Chicago. Mr. Neberly was an executive with a construction firm there. He was in town to oversee some projects that had been underwritten for the Chattanooga area, and he brought his beautiful young bride, Annalisa, with him on a working vacation. They only planned to be here for a week, maybe 10 days tops. Unfortunately, things did not quite work out that way. It seems every project Mr. Neberly was involved in completely went off the rails for one reason or another. So those 10 days they planned on spending with us stretched into 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and then a month. After the first couple of weeks, Mr. Neberly is forced to start making trips back to Chicago to try to pacify the board of directors at his firm. His boss is not happy with his way, the lack of progress he's got going happening here, and he wants answers straight from Mr. Neberly, no telegrams accepted. It was decided it would be too expensive to have both Neberlys commuting back and forth, So Mr. Neberly leaves Annalisa here in 311. He gives her a small allowance and standing orders to stay put, be a good girl, hold down the fort, and stay out of trouble. Unfortunately, Annalisa had trouble following those orders, and I have to say I've got sympathy for her here. You have to put yourself in her perspective here. Here we have this beautiful young lady, a city girl from the big city of Chicago. Now that is an action-packed town. There's something happening there every minute of every day. So you take this city girl used to a life of nonstop excitement, and you drop her off here in the sleepy little town, Chattanooga, Tennessee, where she doesn't know a living soul, where she doesn't have a single friend within 5, maybe 600 miles, stuck in this little set of rooms all day with nothing to see, nothing to do, nowhere to go, day after day after day. In a nutshell, Annalisa Neberly got bored, and she's got my total sympathy on this. Well, to deal with that boredom, she started hanging around down in the billiards room, which we still have downstairs off the main lobby. Started hanging out there and making the acquaintance of young gentlemen there, playing pool. Yeah, they get to talking a bit, get to know each other a little, and well, who's to say? At any rate, word of Annalisa started getting around. You see, some of Annalisa's temporary boyfriends were traveling salesmen, and once they finished business in Chattanooga, they moved to the next town on the circuit. And after hours, well, they hang out with each other.
Right.
They talk shop, they gossip, they
Right.
brag.
Ooh.
Well, all that gossip spread. Word about Annalisa spread all the way to Chicago, as it turns out. And Mr. Neberly, a very jealous man, by the way, Mr. Neberly gets wind of the shenanigans going on behind his back down here.
Uh-oh.
He does not take it well. He catches the next train back to Chattanooga. He comes bursting in here that night, and he finds Annalisa in here with a young fella.
Uh-oh.
Well, Mr. Neberly grabbed that boy, dragged him outside, thrashed him within an inch of his life. He then returned to 311. He grabbed Annalisa, dragged her into the bathroom, threw her into the tub, grabbed his straight-edge shaving razor, and I am going to skip the gory details of what happened next. No need for me to get too gross here. Let's just say the housekeepers found a very messy surprise the next day. Now, you can search police records in Chattanooga. You will not find a whisper of any of this. When I say that, I want you to keep 3 things in mind. First, Mr. Neberly was a wealthy businessman from out of town. Second, his wife, also from out of town, was apparently running around on him. Third, how do I put this? It was the 1920s and it was the Deep South. And a lot of times back then and there, what went on between a man and his wife, no matter how brutal and ugly it got, well, sometimes the law just might be persuaded to turn a blind eye. Especially, I might add, if the people doing the persuading had a lot of influence locally.
Look at that
And a little bit of grease for the skids. For instance, a hotel management who wanted to hush up a scandal and have the wherewithal to make it happen. But here's the thing. If the hotel was involved in a cover-up to protect their reputation and their pocketbook, it turned out not to help a bit. You see, from that day forward, right up until we took this room out of regular service only a few years ago, well, yeah, getting someone to spend a full night in 311, that turned into what we in the hotel business call a very hard dollar to make. Now, people would still check in, but within a few hours, they would be back at the front desk. Yes, they'd be wanting a room move, or they'd be wanting a refund. Basically, they would be wanting out of here. It seems you can only stay in 311 for a fairly short amount of time these days before you start to get this very nervous, uneasy, skin-crawling sensation like you're being watched. People would claim they would be sitting on the bed in there, and suddenly they'd feel someone plop down on the mattress right next to them. They'd turn around, there'd be no one there. Along the same lines, some of the few gentlemen who spend a full night in 311 would report that the next morning, well, they'd be here in the bathroom, they'd be shaving, and suddenly, in the mirror, they would spot the image, the reflection of a beautiful young girl in a blood-soaked gown, and they'd turn around, and find nothing there. Now, you're taking pictures, videotaping, of course, and that's perfectly fine. We encourage that by all means. Feel free to do so. Don't be shy. Just don't be surprised if Annalisa photobombs these pictures.
Oh my goodness.
It's been known to happen, folks. Not every picture, not all at once. Some of the pictures taken in these rooms, including some that I have seen myself, well, they develop strange little images on the film, little otherworldly, glowing orbs of light appear from no noticeable source. Shadows are cast on the wall where there is nothing human to cast a shadow. I have even seen a picture or two where the wallpaper patterns themselves seem to shift a bit to resemble screaming faces. Radio reception in 311 also got kind of peculiar. A lot of buzz and crackle, a lot of static and feedback. And it has been said that no matter what station you're listening to, rock, country, classical music, whatever, you listen long enough and in between songs in the background, you will start hearing 1920s jazz playing. Tell you one last thing about 311, then let you move on where you're headed next. We still rent 311 out. Season 4 is still a few months down the pike, but every Saturday night in October, leading up to and most especially including Halloween night, 311 goes back on the market. For a going rate of $666.66 a night, because someone in the sales department has a very dark sense of humor. Now, if you Google Annalisa Neberly 311, one of your search results will be a news story from the local ABC affiliate News Channel 9. They did a human interest piece a few years ago on a couple who spent Halloween here in 311. And that couple, well, they checked in as skeptics, but they left, and left early, I might add. Oh, they left as true believers
Okay.
in Annalisa Neberly.
Are you feeling creeped out? No?
Any questions?
Yes. Our room did not have a bathtub.
No, this is authentic. This is the way it looked
Exactly. This is how
in
it was back in the 1920s.
1920s.
A long time
What
ago.
is that in the bathtub?
That's a bath mat because some people like to have pictures of themselves made in the tub and kind of scuffs up the tub.
But he threw Annalisa in the tub.
Yes, he
Yes,
did. But
he
it
did.
wasn't this exact tub. It was
No,
one
not
that
this
looked
tub.
Just like this one.
But it did happen in this room.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where the haunting tales come from.
Can I see inside the closet?
Because she passed away here.
Absolutely. You may.
Whew. I'm already getting the heebie-jeebies a little bit.
So luck.
So people really pay
Exactly so.
and stay here. But only during that time of year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Five, maybe 6 nights a year. So, and the rest of the time we keep it set up like this for tourists.
Hey, Mommy. I saw a shadow in the
Oh
tub.
goodness, please don't. Okay.
I saw a shadow in there.
You saw a shadow? Well, okay. Then
Well,
you might be.
It's not beyond the realm of possibility now, is it?
No. Nope. Not at all.
Now, folks, before
Whew.
we head out, there's something I like to do for the people I bring on these tours. If you'll set your phone to snapshot cameras mode and have a seat on the couch, and
Okay.
get a picture of the two of you together here at
Okay.
311.
Let me. Okay, we're gonna stop.